you don't let anything break you. That's what I know my father's given me that. It's something genetic, somewhere maybe in me. It's a stubbornness. एक जिद है, कुछ भी हो जाए, टूटना नहीं. I had to constantly worry about where is my next paycheck going to come from. I lived on rent in a city that I was, still getting to kind of familiarize.
Expensive city.
An expensive city. So these are things that everyone from outside the city goes through. It's just some space you're in. One day everyone loves you and what you've done is absolutely relevant and oh my God, there's no one better than this piece of work and oh my God and oh my God. And then the very next day, you could be wondering, why am I not able to, work in such and such project, or there's something I really want to do and why is this taking so long and I'm feeling impatient sitting at home. I lost my father when I was 11 to terrorism, and that was a very strange and a rather violent way of losing a parent. And thereon, our life changed completely. So as a unit, we were absolutely disoriented and completely displaced. Everything was just gone. I don't even have words to actually explain to you how that felt. So, of course, there's going to be a lot of trauma about that incident and you will always carry that. I have to just be normal, I guess, or whatever, just be strong. That's something the society tells you and people around, and be strong for yourself, for your sister, for your mother. And then you almost sometimes don't feel like being strong. You want to just be. You just want to, at that time, be a child. A lot of those privileges and those liberties went away. So I had to grow up really fast, I think,
Hello everybody, I'm Rudrani and welcome to Spotlight Sessions podcast. So excited that I have this beautiful woman as my guest today in this podcast. She has lived her life by her own rules, actually followed none of the rules that exist. Started the career where she wanted to, lived life the way she wanted to, and today we are going to get to know her a little bit better for you and for me as well. So let's all welcome Nimrat Kaur. Thank you for doing this.
Hi, thank you. Such a sweet, sweet introduction. Thank you.
100%.
Thank you.
Of course, it's an honor to have you. But really I meant, it is a chance to know you a little better. I know you have been extremely private as a person, but also to protect your art in the process, right? But like I said, you have lived your life by the rules that you have created. Does that get difficult? Because when you enter an industry, especially when you're not from here, there are so many advices given to you to do a certain way, to be a certain way, to be a star, to do a certain kind of film. But then you have to take that call. What are the rules that you don't want to follow?
Actually, I feel like, where I started, I was just listening to what you said about my life, and my starting point itself was against the rules on its own, and not by choice really, actually. It just so happened that when I started my life and career in the movies, it was a very unconventional way and with a very unconventional film and at a very unconventional stage in my life. So none of that is of your asking really, Sometimes you just continue to live your life and you know what you don't want to do. Sometimes that is a clarity you have over what is it that you want to do, and you go for it and you get it. Because that doesn't happen all the time, So I feel like I have been a little bit, sort of like just marching to my own tune. I've just done my own thing. I've just kind of followed what my heart tells me over the head. So that is something that makes me a person who naturally just goes with the flow a little bit. And by that I mean not a flow that is decided by society.
Sure.
Or the business you're working in, or the work requirements from your job environment, whatever. I feel like I've just made sure that anywhere I go or anything I do, I just choose the truth of that environment and just being natural and normal there. What I don't love very much is where you are artificially made to feel a certain way because you see, this is what works. I don't believe in that.
I mean, everybody talks about how it is a little difficult for people who don't have anybody in the industry, right, to do it. I know everybody calls you the Cadbury girl for eons now. But you know, whenever we saw you, and when I saw you doing that, I didn't know you, there was still there's this unbridled confidence. And that you feel from somebody that you're watching on screen. When I met you eventually, you know, when I came into the profession, I think I saw that confidence in you continue. And I feel maybe it helps you, right? When you have nobody here, you know, it is not as easy as it might have been for some to get that first opportunity. You put yourself first out there. And besides, you know, make sure that you still believe that one day you're going to get what you want, to stay positive and confident. Does that come from a place of the way you've been brought up or the way you are?
How I am is because of the way I've been brought up. And again, very unconventional circumstances, you know. Army life, you know, you're just getting uprooted from place to place to place every 2 to 3 years. It's something that you don't generally, you know, find. It's a smaller number of people, if you look at the general majority, that live that kind of a life. And then, you know, I lost my father when I was 11 to terrorism, and that was a very strange and a rather violent way of losing a parent. And thereon, our life changed completely. We were in Delhi, and I was studying there for about 8 to 10 years. I did a bit of my schooling, did my college. Then, you know, it's so funny, you know, Rudrani, when I look at my life, as I repeat the things that I'm now almost also used to repeating, because I've relived these things, I've spoken about them before, I've written about that stuff, these things before. It is so strange that I don't even feel like it's one life. I feel like I've lived many lifetimes already, and I don't even know when you ask me what is it that leads you to this place and when was it that you made this choice. I don't even think it was me making the choices, it's the choices picking me up, I feel. I'm truthfully telling you that the only thing I know very well in life is what I can't do and what I don't feel comfortable and, you know, aligned towards.
What were you never aligned towards?
Like working just because, you know, I just want to be seen. There was never any desperation to get somewhere. I need to do this because this is it. Because nothing's it. You see?
Yeah.
Everything is something you achieve, and then there is a what next. And I didn't have the words to really speak this at that time, you know, when I'd just come to Bombay.
Correct.
I was fresh out of college.
Yeah.
But somewhere now, as a person, I think that I've known that there is nothing such as getting there and ek baar yahan pahunch gaye to phir to that's it.
Sorted
I've made
out.
it. What has made it? What is it? Is it a number you've earned, an amount of money, or is it an award you've received? Because you will wake up after 5 days not knowing what is it that I want to do next. There will be a new something you'll want to achieve and do and all of that. That's what excites me. So what I feel really, you know, I feel like as a person, I love doing is knowing that, okay, this is my journey. This is what I want to do next as a project, let's say, for instance, a movie, a show, whatever. And then what am I going to work towards to make sure that this is going to be memorable for me and for the people, you know, who've loved me and adored the work I've done, or, you know, told me that this could be better, or you could have picked a better story, or this scene really didn't work, or whatever else. And then work on the next project knowing that I could have done better with this and that. Does that make sense?
It does.
So,
it does. You know, you were talking about the fact that the will to be seen everywhere. That.
Yeah.
Of course,
I haven't
we
gone
all
to a
party.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't gone to a party
Filmy
to
party,
be like,
to get work or to get notice.
or with the intention that, oh, you know, and this and that. I am a little bit on my own a little bit. So
You're an introvert?
No, I'm not an introvert.
No.
I'm not an introvert.
But you like your space.
I like to put myself in places where I know that there'll be some kind of a conversation I'll at least remember.
Fair enough.
Because at very large rooms in very big places where with a lot of people, what happens is that you can't hear yourself, and then you're just kind of trying to figure out what's going on, and then you're now I've made my peace with the fact that it's not just me. Everyone's really in the same boat. Everyone's feeling weird. Everyone's a little bit awkward and a little bit like, let me find my person. Who am I going to talk to? What's going to happen? So it's like, Rudrani, what happens is now that in the business, as you keep going, it's a little bit, there is no graph. It's almost like you're moving like this, sideways and coming back, and it's just some space you're in. One day everyone loves you, and what you've done is absolutely relevant, and oh my God, there's no one better than this piece of work, and oh my God, and oh my God. And then the very next day, you could be wondering, why am I not able to, work in such and such project, or there's something I really want to do, and why is this taking so long, and I'm feeling impatient sitting at home. And this happens to everyone. Across board.
Yeah.
So it's something now you just have to live with as time goes and flows.
You said live with,
Yeah.
and like I was saying, but is this the sense of security that you have,
Yeah.
that is absolutely clear from this conversation that you are, the confidence that you have, I think also comes from the place, like you said, that you are detached from making it, as you mentioned. It has helped you. You're not constantly wondering where I have to be. That is why you also stay secure, right? You're not constantly comparing yourself to everybody around you, thinking, usko ye mil gaya, mujhe bhi chahiye. Usko ye certain, or at some point there was this level of star you have to become.
And now that's also different, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Tell me how you have maneuvered yourself through all of this, coming from a secure artist like you.
See, I feel that security is also something that comes with knowing that there is actually, at the end of the day, nothing is permanent. Everything is always changing and moving. Maybe as a young girl, I learned this, that nothing is truly permanent. No one in your life is going to be there forever. Forever is actually a fairy tale concept.
Yeah.
It doesn't really exist, people come and people go, friends come and go. You go in and out of people's lives, that happens. So when you know that nothing is permanent at a very basic level, then how can you, attach yourself to a point in a career that you imagine is going to be the best for you, you see? And then what happens when you achieve that, and what happens when you go past that, or what happens, are you going to then live with a sense of failure?
That
If
exactly.
you don't, achieve that one certain kind of a recognized point in somebody's career, if this happens, then this person has made it. We all move our attention from this to that, to that, to this, to that all the time.
Yeah.
I really do believe that, in life, what is really more important now, and with the times that we've seen, post-COVID, we saw what happened to the world.
Yeah.
A lot of us have gone through so much, when you truly realize that at the end of the day, all you really have is only yourself, then you'll actually start to maybe feel like, okay, there's really no reason to be insecure about anything after all in life. That is something that I feel has shifted in me, knowing that, there is really nothing to lose at the end of the day.
Very profound, but very true. Very profound. तो ना आपने थोड़ी देर पहले mention किया था कि as a young girl I have learned that very early,
Yes.
right? How to deal with loss and stuff.
Yeah.
You wrote about, with Papa's passing 30 years ago today, life took a turn in a direction one still grapples with every now and then. While relentless, unrequited dreams and what-ifs never quiet perish, there's a never-ending pride in knowing his light, the life story, are here to stay, forever in our hearts and brighter than ever. what a beautiful homage in the writing that you've written. Also, I think it's there is, you actually said that the pain will always be there, right? When someone tells you, how do you get over it? I think the pride that you come from a background like this, and the pride that you have that you were his daughter and your mother's, because I think then she took over and she made sure that all of you were such brilliant women sitting in front of me, is something that you acknowledge all the time, right? How was dealing with that period and the grief? There is clarity now, I see that, and but that moment teaches you not just about losing somebody, right? There was so much associated to that moment. What a brilliant man. What he did for his country, what happened, the hate around it, right? The love that you feel and the pain that you feel, and then of course, your family. How do you deal with all of that when you are that young, and then you eventually keep thinking about that moment?
I think you realize what's happened much later. I don't think it doesn't sink in, because I'm the elder daughter, and I have a younger sister, and my mom was very young. She was in her mid-30s when this happened. I was all of 11, and my younger sister was 7. So as a unit, we were absolutely disoriented and completely displaced, because the world as you know it is over. You've lost, the captain of your ship, and everything was just gone. I don't even have words to actually explain to you how that felt. So of course there's going to be a lot of trauma about that incident, and you will always carry that. There will always be a part of you that will be with reference to what happened. That doesn't change really. You see, I'm not saying that you carry the grief and the cloud of grief upon you all the time, but the person you are is through the prism of that lens. And you have to be almost very mindful that you don't view life through the kind of a suddenness of that event, that anything that drastic can happen at any point in time, because that is a very disorienting thought. We, from the army environment, suddenly were thrown into a civil environment, very alien, didn't know anything, didn't have any friends, nothing. And we had to rebuild our lives. So for the first year or so, I was actually just trying to grapple with a new school, new everything, a birthday without, having him around, and, festivals without, him around, and all of that. So it was a very strange time, honestly. And it was just strange because only after a year did we realize, and my mother went through her own cycles of, ups and downs, and, so much deep sadness. But that was all, what she was going through, and I was honestly unaware of it because I was so young, I wasn't at an age where I could understand as a woman what was she really going through, you see. I was trying to be there for her in my own way, and, trying to make sure that, okay, I have to just be normal, I guess, or whatever, just be strong, that's something the society tells you and people around, and, be strong for yourself, for your sister, for your mother. Everyone's always telling you that.
Yeah.
So the problem with trying to be strong all the time is that the expectation becomes that then, and then you almost sometimes don't feel like being strong. You want to just be. You just want to, at that time, be a child, and just make the mistakes, that you would make as a kid. A lot of those privileges and those liberties went away. So I had to grow up really fast, I think, So that happened. I realized after a year or so that what it really meant to not have him around. And, to grow up as a girl without the love of really the first man you are introduced to in your life, who's your father. And he was a shining example of a human being, really a son of the soil, worked his way up from being a farmer, soldier's son. He used to literally farm in the fields and go to his night school with his brothers in the night, walking,
Wow.
you know, a mile or so, a mile and a half or so, and study. He went to Jodhpur University, went into the army through the IMA. You know, a fine officer, really had a bright future in the army. So, and apart from all of that, he was a wonderful father. Someone so proud of his girls, you know, someone who didn't grow up, who could have grown up wanting to be, you know, interested in a boy child and things like that, which are very common notions, you
of
know,
course.
in the heartland, and you know, all of that. That still exists, unfortunately.
Of course.
But उन्होंने पेड़े बांटे थे when I was born in
lovely.
Pilani. And he was told कि अरे आपके यहाँ तो बेटी हुई है, and he said कि that's exactly why I'm celebrating, because मेरे यहाँ बेटी हुई है, you know.
We need more fathers like that.
Yeah.
We need more fathers like that.
Yeah. So he was, you know, but I will say, Rudrani, that, you know, the wings he kind of gave me for those 11 years, you know, they set the foundation for my life. And who I am today is because of those years. Yeah.
The world is talking about, yours was discussed, that was discussed as well, right? Like
Yeah.
people, it was written about.
Yeah.
For a young girl who's not understanding what her father's gone through.
Yeah.
And then there's media and there's all of that at that
Yes.
time, and of course, and then you understanding why, and the terrorism and the hate.
Yeah.
That's a very difficult conversation to understand again, because you are feeling hate, no, towards the people who've taken you away, and to understand why would they do that. Did that give you a perspective into how the world is, because it's still relevant today? There
Of
is
course,
still terrorism
unfortunately.
today. Unfortunately, lives are being taken away. You know, we know what happened
Yeah.
right now. How does a child then and today, when you think of it, eventually, does the bitterness go away? Do you become rational? It's difficult. Understanding terrorism, understanding that, from that girl to today, how was that journey?
Very complicated and extremely confusing, because you don't understand, like you said, you know, why my question actually at that time was, why us?
Yeah.
You know, that's something that I just couldn't wrap my head around, because I grew up feeling like if you do good things happen to you, and you know, be a good girl and then everything's going to be fine. And then I thought I was doing everything right, you know, and then this happened. So for a long time, I think I was at war with God himself. Because
It's an honest thing to say.
yeah, I was. I chose in my mind that, you know, how can I believe in God, and how can I continue to, you know, have faith when something like this happens to my mum, my sister, and my father. All of us, you know, we're just a simple, small little unit, you know, living our little life. So that was the part that I had to honestly comb through for a very long time. And I would just not be able to understand what is destiny, what is choice. How do you land up in a place where you choose this? You know, when you grow up now, when you're growing older, you're kind of, you hear all these concepts. Life is half design, half destiny, choice, chance, blah, 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 blah. I used to try to figure out what is it that we did as a unit or a family that landed us up there with that happening to us, you see. That's where I feel like, you know, over a period of time, with a lot of conversations, therapy, a lot of detailed sort of introspection, and watching people's lives, you know, where it's not about my trauma is bigger than your trauma, or आपकी ये problem है लेकिन आपको नहीं पता मेरे साथ क्या हुआ है. You know, all of us are constantly looking for being a person who's gone through a bigger crisis, or then, oh, you know what, I actually, we can't compare things also somewhere.
Sure.
So I feel like somewhere now, I did learn that everyone's got their, you know, way of dealing, and everyone's got their problems to deal with in life. Carrying hate and carrying bitterness was something that I learned very early on from my mother, that that's not going to age well for any of us. And we were literally sat down and told that those people who did this to us, you know, they don't represent anyone, any sect,
religion.
any culture, any nationality. They're actually broken, lost people on their own. If you really sit them down and ask them, why did you do this? They will not give you one coherent answer. They're not going to be able to really tell you, you see?
Yeah.
And you know, the interesting part is, Rudrani, that my father was in captivity for a week.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
This wasn't, it wasn't just a moment.
He was kidnapped.
He was kidnapped, and he was with them for a week.
Yeah.
And they had conversations. My father had conversations. He would try and tell them that, you know, you should not do this. And they actually apparently had no real answers. So it's not like humanity comes to this world wanting to be evil. Somewhere along the way, circumstances and conditioning makes people make wrong choices, which of course have catastrophic after effects, you know, like what happened to us. I'm not saying that what they did was something, you know, forgivable even.
Yeah.
You know, how do you even get around that? But I do believe that, you know, if you really meet any of these people, so-called terrorists or any of such people, they're not really going to have a clear answer as to why do they choose these kind of life paths. There is no sense in walking into my life or mum's life or my sister's life with that bitterness and grief and hatred towards someone who himself doesn't know why they did what they did. It's actually very tough, you know, Rudrani, and this is something you come upon after a very long time of going through a lot of ups and downs emotionally, and really recognizing that this noise is just noise. You have to somewhere accept what happened and make the most of what life has given you otherwise. It's very difficult. I almost, it can sound unreal and strange also, almost, that, you know.
This is very honest of you to say.
But it is my lived truth.
Yeah.
It's my lived reality.
Test case के promotions तक उसके पहले तक, you know, there have been many years, right? 11-year-old लड़की से बहुत आगे निकल चुकी थी. But there was this sense of the fact that you still didn't make it about yourself. And that, I think, I will always find that inspiring. How many people will have that kind of courage that you and your family showed? So hats off. That's the only reason why I wanted to bring it up.
That's very kind of you. But
it is, right? It's...
Yeah, I mean, you know, honestly, it's something that when you really go through something of this scale, when you're in the eye of the storm, you know, you see everything for what it is. Sometimes what happens is that people mean well and they wish well, but they don't always have the right things to say in your ear. And hate begets hate, honestly. There is no solution in that. What is the person going to come back? No. Are we going to really get to the root of the problem by isolating a sect or a cultural background or a religion or any of that? No, we're not. The problem is, where's the schooling? What's happening with who are these kids who should actually be going to school but grow up with guns in their hands instead of pens and books? When you go through something, you know.
Yeah.
You don't actually, it's like armchair judgment and, you know, philosophies and sitting back and saying that, you know, how can they do this? And I mean, have you gone through something like that? Do you know what it means?
When I saw you do test case,
yes,
and I realized what the series at the time meant. Oh, by the way, this was when series were not supposed to be the popular thing to do.
Yeah, this was like one of the first few.
Which is incredible, right? Like, and the story about this woman who was finally getting to do combat, which by the way has changed now as we talk.
Yeah.
I just want to put it there.
Yes.
I know that.
Yes.
But at that time, women were not allowed in combat.
Yes.
And you know, it was so exciting for me, Nimrat, to see you do the role, and with the pride that you spoke during the promotions. You were not stuttering. You know, you were so clear with what you were saying, and also what it meant to give women truly the chance to be equal. Test Case was one of those series that I thought, I'm not saying that is the reason why things changed later for women, but I'm saying everything adds to a conversation.
It does, Rudrani. And may I just tell you one just an example, when I go through airport security and things,
Yeah.
you know, the CRPF girls and, you know,
Yeah.
there are so many times that I have gone through the security and I have met so many young girls who told me that they watched the show and then they went into the forces. They watched the test case and then they decided to go into the forces. I cannot even count on my fingertips. And that for me is my reason to be where I am. And that's why there is no concept of making it. Because this for me is making it. You know?
It was incredible.
When you move someone to make a life choice like that by virtue of something you did,
Yeah.
because you were passionate about that subject and because you were lucky enough to get it, you know, that for me is the reason why I feel happy doing what I do.
I am not saying that you don't want to do fun films. I think you're fantastic at comedy. We saw this. No, really. And people need to, I think, explore that a little more. I'd love to see. I think, for me, Dasvi was you. I was rolling. But there is a sense of how you want your body of work to look like. And if I'm being presumptuous, you can stop me and say that no. Because I see the characters you pick. There is conflict. There is that moment where that woman is fighting against something that she's been wronged. There are those layers that make me tell, you know, that there are those layers that the audience, if they pick on, will realize what she's trying to say through her character. You started with smaller roles, I know. Peddlers, and then you know, a lunchbox. I mean, come on, right? And then to see you doing a thing like, you know, like obviously the series, test case, so many more actually. Dasvi included, Kull today. Women who are messy, women who are a voice of their own.
There was also Homeland.
Oh,
You know,
of course.
which was very-
Foundation 2 also. Our
Foundation-
Hollywood. We have our international star here with us.
You know, this is the part that I find very, very interesting, that, you know, as an actor, my job is to find interesting stories, Rudrani. I want to find interesting stories. I want to be a woman who can't be painted with one shade and one color, because I feel like that's life. I'll meet a different you if I meet you in a different setting. If I speak to two different people in your life, they'll know two versions of you. And your version of you is going to be a third version, right? So how can I, you know, not pick paths which actually give me the opportunity to portray women and a human being of all kinds of, you know, all, which represents all shades of all colors if possible. I will say that these paths also find me. I don't think that, you know, these choices are that deliberate, and you know, the work life of an actor doesn't really work like that. It doesn't really pan out like that, you know. Sometimes you really want to do something and then that role will not come to you, or there are certain parts which come to you and you don't really feel very drawn to playing or whatever. So that is a combination of the things that pick you, and then what you do with it. That is somewhere, you know, where I have fun. So my most cherished part of a project is actually when I get the script and when I'm building something, you know, before I go to set. Because once you go to set, it's mayhem. Then it's like, you know, you're working against timelines and weather and light, and, you know, it's just crazy, you know. So you have to find the sense in what you're doing in all of that madness. So coming back to your question, you know, why I do these parts and all of that is because I feel that relatability, and where you feel like you can't really put a finger on whether you love someone or you hate someone, or am I a bit like this? I'm afraid to admit it that I'm like this, but you know what, I think I am, you know. That conflict I find very interesting, because that interests me as an audience as well.
So what I said in my presumption statements are little true, na? That you do seek out or hope that you have women like this, where, you know, they have a voice, and not most of the times, not many have that. So look at me asking, so not very off, na?
It is, no, you're not off. I have to tell you that, you know, you've kind of zeroed in on that very interestingly, I have to say. But this is really a privilege, and I am aware of that. You know, every woman in this world doesn't have the privilege or the opportunity to speak up and to, you know, claim what they really want.
This is you expressing through your art.
I try, but it's not something as profound, I think, as how you're viewing it. I feel like it's a much larger conversation what you're saying.
Sure.
When I pick a part, I find mostly that, you know, it should entertain people, it should be relatable, it shouldn't be forgettable. It should be something you remember.
None of the things you've done are forgettable. None of the things you've done are forgettable. We keep on saying society expects this from you, society expects this from you, right? There are so many rules written for women.
Yes.
And I think we have to, you know, figure all of that out with, of course, your sister, maybe your friend, and you know, mother helping you in the process of it, and then become your own person, you know. But I'm saying that there are so many things that we have to deal with in the process of this growing up, you know, whether it's harassment, whether being eve teased, whether then trying to, do I have to react or not react, do I make this big, am I okay the way I look, you know, am I pretty enough, you know, and a lot of things that sometimes when you're too busy doing your own thing, and if you have that privilege, you will not think about it. But most women have to go through it and decide that, you know, I have to figure all this out along with the fact that I have to have a career, which I think another woman will understand what I'm talking about. How did you deal with that phase? You know, because all of that adds, I feel, to the person who's sitting in front of me. All of that growing up years of what you go through, how you decide, adds to it.
I don't think that really ever ends, I don't think the struggles of what you feel, the concepts keep changing, topics change, the complexities of existing as a woman in largely a man's world, and I'm only talking population stats.
100%.
Correct? We are in a man's world, population stats wise. Correct? So now, when you are the odd one out in that sense, in a larger majority, what you need to kind of keep reminding yourself constantly of is that the choices you are making as a woman are unconventional. I choose to live in a certain way. I don't live with a family. I don't follow a format of age specific expectations that अभी ये एज है, अभी वो एज है, अभी ये एज खत्म हो गई और अभी एज शुरू हो गई है. अब एक बात बताओ, what if we all live for 200 years? I'm just saying. 100 years की life expectancy आजकल है somewhat. 90s तो चलो हो ही गया. What if we all live for 200 years? Then I would still be a toddler, right? So then what would have happened? Then I could have lived the life I wanted to live. I mean, this is just rubbish. I feel like the more I grow into myself and, you know, with the passing of time, I'm really enjoying my life more and more and more, because I'm letting go of all my inner fears, inhibitions. You know, the societal, ये नहीं कर सकते, वैसे करोगे तो क्या हो जाएगा, because I've grown up in that environment. I come from a middle class family. I come from an environment where everyone's watching everyone, and you know, and who are these everyone? These everyones are also going through the same problems, and they are also bothered by the other everyones.
Caught in patriarchy, na?
Indeed, patriarchy or societal haw high, as I call it.
Yeah, I love that. Societal haw high.
Haw highs. You know कि ये हो जाएगा, हां उसने ये किया, हाय हाय ये, please, it's all things that, you know, people also bind themselves in when they don't really want to step out of their comfort zones of misery. Sometimes that happens as well. It's not always that, you know, you can't really break away and all of that. Every story is not the same, I feel. I feel like sometimes people also perpetuate those cycles because they don't really want to challenge what they actually can. You know, whether it's expectations or whether it's certain set boundaries and this and that. You can very well break away from certain things, walk out, make your mistakes, and then see how life is. Sometimes people just enjoy judging life and people and neighbors and colleagues and all of that so much more that they actually don't realize their full potential. So I have never really got caught in doing any of that stuff. That is something I've been very, very mindful of. No judgments. I don't decide how someone else should live my life.
Absolutely.
Live their life. I don't decide how someone else should live their life. And I more or less don't really listen to when people tell me this is how you should live your life. Because I don't believe anyone knows any better than the other person in any case. I don't, and surely the other person doesn't. So things have to be kept in perspective there, you know. I don't take stress about expectations, period. I really just go with what I'm feeling. How am I going to really enjoy myself when I pick this project up, or where do I want to travel next? My curiosities and my life interests actually guide me through this maze of life, you know. So
Yeah.
that's what happens.
But I know your mom, of course, plays a massive role
Yes.
in this
Yes, she does.
journey.
Yeah.
And I know that she has empowered both you and your sister.
Yes.
That is, I think, the beginning of how someone becomes who she is and more confident, right? How did she have that tough conversations about women with you? That, you know, for example, if someone says something that you're not okay, or, you know, you're harassed, speak out. Or don't let anyone make you feel smaller because of your gender, or things like that. You know, sometimes, like, your mothers sit by. How are those conversations? Because I don't know, I feel like they all are so important, no? Nimrat?
Yeah, but you know, my mom is actually a very simple and a very, you know, she's just a very simple mama. I don't know how to say this.
No, I
but
understand that.
I don't have words to tell
But
you
even
that
simple mamas are very protective about their daughters. Mine is one.
she is actually very, she just lives her life in such a simple yet strong way that I have learned by observing her. That's it.
Really?
We've had no conversations about when you go into this environment, this is what you need to do, or you know, because she's been a housewife for her entire life.
Yeah.
So she actually hasn't put herself out in, you know, work environments and things. She's only, you know, handled the household and us and my grandmother, and you know, like lived life in that environment. But her native intelligence about how to navigate life and how she handles people, situations, how to respond, not react, those are things I have actually learned by observing her, by just being around her and seeing her. She has this very soft but sure intelligence about navigating life, you know, where it's not like, you know, she has some big lectures to give me, or you know, some fancy words or quotes, or you know, she's got some you know, pearls of wisdom coming my way. And my grandmother's the same. My Nani ji is actually the mother tree we all kind of look at, you know, where she got married at the age of 14. This used to happen back then.
A lot.
And she's touchwood, you know, into her mid 90s at this point. And the freedom and the flamboyance with which she lives her life. You know, she has skincare routines.
Love it.
She asks me what I use and then tells me that my skin doesn't look like yours and you're not telling me what you actually use. So I don't, you know, you have to, like, that's who she is, you know.
Get it.
You know, so this is where we're at as a unit of women who just live their life, and we don't really have any fancy words to tell each other,
But
we really just mind our business. That is something that I feel like is something that's
Makes
really
sense.
saved me and let me live a peaceful, happy life, you know.
Well put. You know why I asked this? Nimrat is now a part of a show called Kull. If you haven't watched it, please go and do. So I watched Kull, and you know, I saw your character goes through a journey from this docile, I have to protect my family, wife, yet all of that, to someone who gets a little power and then also tries to fight for things around suddenly. She goes from hanging around being quiet to suddenly having quiet resilience powerfully, you know, which is such an interesting graph to have. But then also the way, the kind of woman who's always taking care of everybody around her. That is what women are doing their whole lives.
Of course.
Of your husband.
Everyone else first, then me.
And she's literally doing that.
Yeah.
You know, even when it comes to her, the way she protects her brother is just at some point annoying. I have to say that. I'm sorry.
Don't be.
Nimrat, I had to put it out there.
Don't be.
You know, but it comes from the cycle that's what you're told. Protect your family, hide things.
Yes.
Don't say it.
Yeah.
Are very quietly changing yourself, but I think you're also have observations from the women
Yes.
that you have seen.
No,
right?
no, absolutely.
And I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
Tell me a little more on.
That I feel is a mirror, to the society we live in. Not every time do we have to play a part which is empowered by the environment or the work profile or all of that, where
100%.
you portray a part like that, right? Sometimes it's also important to play a person we see more often than not. In a society where we live, in our country, more often than not, you will find and meet women who are stifled and suffocated by the family units they're in,
Yeah.
where they're actually carrying such a burden and such weight upon their fragile shoulders
100%.
many times, where they are forced to be quiet about, atrocities, very often verbal abuse, very often suffocating circumstances, the men in the family. It's just constant man management and people management. And sometimes it's very important to play a part like that. So Indrani Rai Singh, Rani Indrani Rai Singh, so to say she holds the title of a queen. But actually she lives like someone who's actually a caretaker.
Yeah.
Someone who's just, shouldering the burden of conflict, constant drama, just making sure that people don't lose their mind, people are not at loggerheads and fighting and somewhere she really has no definition or no concept of who is she really, where is her identity, everything she does is with respect to everything that is expected of her. That for me was very interesting because I've seen that happen all my life around me, all my life. Whether it's neighbors or within my family sometimes,
Yeah.
extended family, this and that. And very often those are the voices that come into your ear as well, that, just be quiet. Don't say this right now. Just forget it. Forget about it. It didn't happen. So it's very important for me to play that woman. And then, of course, the story is very, very interesting and extremely contradictory to where you start and where it ends up. So she finds herself and finds her, motivations in living a completely different life and the opportunities. But that's cinema.
When you were reading the script, you at some point, sometimes you try having a conversation, understand your character.
Yeah.
You must have been like, "Yaar, tum
Yeah,
kyun?"
मैं क्या कर रही हूँ मैं? You're right. You're absolutely right. There were times when I was like, oh my God, I could watch, what was happening on set, and I would be like, oh my God, just remember, Nimrat, this is not you. This is Indrani. This is Indrani Rai Singh. This is not Nimrat. So please remember that your reactions are towards a character. So you please, and it goes somewhere, and this is what. It's a lead up to somewhere.
I just want to say that you're very, very good in the show because, like I said, quiet resilience is
Yeah.
what you're powering.
Yes.
And I think you see that. And besides the fact that you're incredible, just to think of the range of what I was saying, and I'm saying these 3 films is only because to show you, think of Lunchbox, think of Dasvi, and then think of Kull.
Yes.
The range that you've been able to pull off is incredible.
Thank you so much. I'm very, very fortunate. And the test case and Kull are both backed by Ekta Kapoor. So I have to really, really credit her here because I feel like as a woman, she really, really has given me such spectacular opportunities as a female artist. I have to credit her on that and, thank her there. Because both these, and you know what, I'm always looking for unconventional paths and all of that because it just excites me so much. And I feel like these reactions where, you're like, sometimes, Rudrani, people come to me and they're like, was it you in that film or did you play that? Were you in Airlift also and Test Case also? And people can't figure that, is it the same person? That for me is such a huge compliment and, I live for that.
The commitment that you show to art also is, I remember, right? Your transformation that you had to do for Dasvi. And then I remember that post where I'm like, good for you. I am so glad you said it. We live in a country where we think only being fair is beauty.
Yes.
And then we have problematic products that sort of
Yeah,
promote that.
Yeah.
We live in a place where people are constantly doing you're too thin or you're too fat or you're whatever.
Yeah.
The way you said it, the clarity with which you wrote that post, I'm sure you must have thought about what you put.
Yes. Deeply.
है ना?
And I even thought about whether I should put it or not.
Why did you think
Because
about
it was
that?
just, you know, it's something very different to how I am as a person. You know, I don't tom about this is what I did and this is how it was, and you know, I'm not that person. I just go about life and I let people talk about what I'm doing, or you know, how they think about my work. But this was the first time I felt compelled precisely because of these reasons, you know.
The reaction of somebody asking you, oh, you've gained weight, or why have you done it?
Yeah, it was very interesting because I knew why I was putting the weight on.
Sure.
It was for a part, and I had committed to something that I wanted to do willingly. And it made me think, you know, that this is something that I'm going through not by virtue of something I can't choose.
Yeah.
What happens to people who
Already
can't
are.
choose this? Who know it's not a choice for them. What happens when women have to go through this kind of unnecessary, unsolicited comments
On their body and
on
face.
the body and face, and you know, you're too this and you're too that, and you know, like, what is all of this, and how does one combat it in day-to-day life? How do you go about feeling confident or feeling loved? You'll always go through life looking for validation, and you'll go through life looking to be something different from how God made you. What and who gives that right to anyone, and why should they take it? That was what was, you know, a very interesting takeaway for me actually through that process, because I'm not born with a certain body type, I'm born with a different body type. So I can observe and empathize, but as a human being, how can you really, you know, take that right and say anything to anyone?
But like I said, and it happens a lot to actors also, right? Body shaming and the way you look and stuff like that. A lot bigger people think it's everybody's right to comment. You know, I know you never want, I know you don't want to romanticize struggle and whatever, because I always see you underplaying it. I said, how can it be when you don't have someone in the industry? It cannot
Yeah.
be that easy.
No.
Tell me how you were going through the losses and the hits and the misses, and I would like to call it struggles. I know,
Yes.
in your own way.
Yeah, of course.
And how did you deal with that? While the word can presume that Cadbury girl hai to mil gaya, I don't think it can be that easy.
You know, the Cadbury commercial happened to me after the Lunchbox released at the Cannes Film Festival. I had gone through being in Bombay for, I want to say, almost 10 years before the Lunchbox happened to me. I came to Mumbai in 2004. And I started with auditions, going from door to door to door, because at that time, that's how,
Yeah.
you know, people rolled.
Yeah.
I had a set of pictures with my name and my phone number on a sticker. I made them all, you know. There is so much labor, and there is so much work, and there is so much constant day-to-day struggle that goes into landing your first audition in this city, and then going through some 85 to 100 auditions to be told that you're actually not screen worthy, and then landing your first commercial, music videos, many ads I did after that. But I had to constantly worry about where is my next paycheck going to come from. I lived on rent in a city that I was, you know, still getting to kind of familiarize.
Expensive city.
An expensive city, you see. So these are things that everyone from outside the city goes through. And let's please recognize that we're trying to be become something in an industry that is a small percentage of people in one city in a very large country.
Yeah.
We're what, 1.4 billion,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So here you're trying to make a mark for yourself. There were many days I just wanted to go back home. Many days. I would cry on the phone to my mom and then wipe my tears and say, "Nini, but I'm not coming back right now." Because you see, if you cry too much, you'll be told that, okay, forget all this, come
जाओ
back.
वापस, हाँ.
वापस आ जाओ, you are a BCom honors graduate, कुछ CA बन जाओ, you know,
Yeah.
कुछ ऐसा कुछ करो, MBA कर लेते हैं, you know, do something easy with your life. So there was no going back. There was no question of, you know, turning around, because I didn't know where I wanted to be, but I knew that where I was is where I belonged. So there was never a day where I wanted to turn around and pack my bags and go back. That was not going to happen. And I think it's the sheer stubbornness. It's a stubbornness actually, Rudrani. That's what it is. You don't let anything break you. That's what I know my father's given me that. You don't let anything break you, and I know that it's something genetic, you know, somewhere maybe in me. It's a stubbornness. एक जिद है कुछ भी हो जाए, टूटना नहीं है. I'll cry. I'll talk to my friends. I'll talk to my family. I'll I'll bend, but I will not break. That is something that I know I inherently have in me. You know, I've gone through that as a young girl, as a grown woman. I've gone through that, and I continue to go through that. ऐसा नहीं है कि everything is perfect and peachy, and just because I'm at a different stage in my life. Ad films happened. The lunchbox happened to me at a stage where I wasn't even expecting anything to happen. The director and the casting director, they saw a couple of my plays, and I was cast in the movie without a screen test. And then Homeland happened, Airlift happened, Test Case happened.
Foundation 2 happened.
Wayward Pines, Foundation 2, I don't even remember now. There are certain things, Dasvi. So I feel like, life keeps happening to us, and I find myself in a place where I know that I don't have to worry about my next meal anymore. I don't have to worry.
Were there days like that?
Well, there were days when I would, not in such a dramatic way where, it's a figure of speech.
Sure.
But I do recall that, my bank balance would drop to a place where I would be worried that, oh my God, I must now work, or, where's my next paycheck coming from, because I have rent, I have, bills. One has to take, I used to take an auto or a taxi if budget's allowed at that time, or whatever one had to do.
Yeah.
So I've gone through all stages of life being in Bombay, I value every single day, because I feel like any time I didn't give up, gave myself a message that this is not the end, and that is something I hold on to so dearly, because these are silent promises you make to yourself, and somewhere it's the kind of messaging that keeps you going further and forward, and takes you to places even you won't have factored in.
They always say it takes one more person not to give up to be an inspiration, right? Everybody talks about how Shah Rukh was an outsider.
Oh, he's my biggest inspiration.
Yeah?
Yes. Are you going to ask that question?
You can. I mean, you started. I had more to it, but it must be, right?
Well, actually, I found him to be such a big, success story. From when I was in school, I used to underline his interviews, in Filmfare magazine and all the other film magazines, I used to underline them, because I used to find what he said so inspiring. Here's a Delhi boy, studied in St. Columbus and St. Stephen's, someone whose words had such a large impression on me. And I love the sheer audacity of the man's life grid. I love it. He decides what he wants to do. He decides where he wants to be. And he is his own universe. And I often feel very inspired when I look at life stories like that, or President Obama for that matter. I love his life story as well. Irfan, of course.
It's wonderful. Like I was saying, so I'll complete the sentence. I was saying that there's Shah Rukh, and then there's again one more outsider like you who didn't give up to make space for others who will probably, because you always hear that this industry is so tough, and women will be asked to compromise, they'll be don't come in. There are a lot of parents and a lot of people, actors who say that, and they're discouraged. Maybe a story like this can make them say that we can figure out in one day more and stick to it.
100%. Stay true to yourself. Stay true to what really matters, and not things that evaporate in 5 days or a week or a month. It's very important to identify what really will last a lifetime.
Sure.
Lambi race ka ghoda bano.
When we are young, our idea of romance comes from films, but also our immediate idea of romance comes from our parents when we see them, or partnerships. Romance to abhi, in a practical way. Did yours also come from that? Did yours also come from first films that, because then you eventually become part of it, and then you have a more rational approach? I also ask this because, like you, I'm also living a life where I'm very happy with myself. But you're constantly asked that, will you be if you don't have someone? And the clarity some time ago in the same conversation where you said it, saying that I'm so happy with what I'm doing and where I am. It also gives me that your idea of romance is not dictating your idea of living is what I was trying to say. So I want to know about that.
The right kind of a life partner.
Yeah.
We attract that once we become in alignment with who we really are, you know. And I've seen my parents in the most blessed, beautiful marriage, you know, where everything was not out there and it wasn't explicit. And, you know, I barely even saw them hugging each other for that matter. You know, that's the kind of a societal background they came from. But there was so much love and respect and a togetherness and a quiet understanding between them. And I feel like, you know, when you are really, really, truly in touch with yourself, you'll attract all the right energies, whether it's a life partner or a friend or the right house or, you know, the right kind of people who support you in your work environment. That is what happens when you really, you know, align with who you are as a person. And then, you know, you take on the challenges and you figure life out and all of that. I feel like to begin with, you have to love yourself. You have to remember that you need to love yourself the most and look after yourself and provide yourself with the safety and the nurturing and give yourself a pat on the back every now and then, which very often we all don't do, you know. As girls, we're always very harsh on ourselves, you know. I could have done this better. And I feel like women do that much more. Much more.
Always, right?
I could have done this better. It's almost like an imposter syndrome, you know, where nothing is good enough. It's great to keep going and great to keep chasing perfection and all of that. But once in a while, give yourself a pat on the back and tell yourself, well done.
You know, this was a question that would have remained almost unanswered, but you almost gave me an idea of how you kind of survived it. You said nothing breaks you, right? The amount of trolling that female actors go through, that you've gone through, sometimes with judgments and everything, with character assassinations and stuff. You know what I observed? I saw you putting out a funny reel. I saw you living your life. How do you manage that? How do you cut through that? How do you not respond to what people thought about you? I had to say it. You know, how did you do that, Nimrat? I know you said you didn't break, but it's a lot to take what you went through.
Oh, well, for another time.
For another time? You're okay?
Yes.
That's important. I hope that you continue to have that
Thank you.
energy. And I will end by asking you this. You know, first of all, thank you for being so honest. And I feel like, you know, rarely do we get opportunities to meet people who can tell the story the way you did. What is it that you have learned in your life, in your career, that you would always remember? And for people who want to probably be in your shoes someday or, you know, join the profession and to live the life uninhibitedly like the way you do, what would you tell them?
Surround yourself with people that empower you. Have the right voices in your ears. Because right now, I feel like we live in a society where there's a lot of noise. Online, offline, families, friends. We have so much noise around us that it's very important to, for the largest amount of people, number of people, and the loudest voices to be empowering and positive. And I don't mean that in a, you know, like in a quotable way.
Sure.
Genuinely, you should have people who keep you on the straight and narrow, call you out if you're not being honest, or, you know, if you're kind of, you know, trying to take advantage of anything in any way, or, you know, many times we do that as well.
Yeah,
you know, playing a victim card, or, you know, being a sorry figure so that, you know, sympathy gets us somewhere, and, you know, things like that also happen. That is something that I feel like if you as a woman surround yourself with people who don't tell you to work towards something in spite of this and that and all of that. Forget the in spites. Keep your eyes on the prize. And look at what you really want to create. And then everything else just keeps falling by the wayside. It's noise. It's just life circumstances, life situations. It isn't your life.
So beautifully put. Reminds me of why all your Instagram posts have those just posts of sunrise sometimes and you contemplating. No, it shows me that you are trying to live your life the way you want to by cutting out the noise, like you said it. You know, these little posts, and I have pictures, I'll put it up while I say, where you're just going and sieving through grains in your pind, right? You have pictures of you just going to a holiday and saying, yeah, this is just me, and just like
I
in
love
front
going
of
into
the
the
sunset.
mountains. I love
Right?
it. Yes, it's where I plug in, and you know how you recharge your phone. That's my plug-in points. I mean, going into the mountains, into nature. So I feel most aligned. I mean, if there is one thing I feel like keeps me, grounded and keeps me wanting to just go through life, situation after situation, day after day. It's when I actually take my time off, and then I just relax and go hiking and do lovely things like that.
Thank you, Nimrat.
Thank you.
For your patience. I hope I have not triggered you in any way. You know, it's a lot to talk about. But
Thank you.
Thank you for being
you.
who you are.
Thank
And I'll always be cheering for you because I hope there are more crazy characters. Rani says just one of them.
Yes, thank you so
Thank you.
much.
I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope
I
I
really,
did
really
not,
loved it. No,
really put
thank
you in a spot or anything like
No,
that.
no, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for such an insightful and, an in-depth conversation. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you, and sending you so much love.
Thank you.